I don't usually talk about this. In fact, I promised myself I never would. But lately, I've been having trouble sleeping. Every time I close my eyes, I remember what happened that night, and I'm starting to think maybe telling it out loud will make the memories go away. It started quietly, too quietly, if I'm being honest. My apartment was on the third floor, tucked away at the end of a narrow hallway. No one really walked down unless they had to. At night, it was always still. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful but heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath. I used to sleep with the window cracked open because the place got stuffy. That night, I remember lying in bed, half asleep, when I noticed something strange. The silence wasn't complete anymore. There was a faint hum. Not like a machine, not like pipes. It was lower, deeper. Almost like someone whispering in the dark, but too far away to make out words. I thought maybe it was coming from the street below, so I tried to ignore it. But then came the smell. Damp, like wet earth that had been locked in a cellar for too long. It rolled into the room in slow waves, filling my nose until I had to cover my face with the blanket. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was just a trick of my half-dreaming mind. And then the cold began. Not the kind of cold where you shiver and pull the blanket tighter. No, this was sharp, precise, like invisible fingers trailing down my arms, tracing the outline of my body. I froze under the covers, my breathing shallow, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard I thought it would give me away. I don't know why, but every instinct screamed at me. Don't open your eyes. It's strange, isn't it? The way you can feel watched without seeing anyone. My eyelids were shut tight, but I knew there was something in the room with me. Something standing so close, it could hear every breath I took. I wanted to move, to run, to do anything, but my body was heavy, locked in place. Then I heard it. Right above me, where the ceiling should have been, came this long, rattling breath, like lungs that hadn't tasted air in centuries, suddenly inhaling. The sound was so close, I swear I felt the ceiling sag. My skin prickled with heat and cold all at once, and my lips started trembling, even though I hadn't said a word. A voice followed, not a whisper, not a growl, something in between, a rasp that scraped against my ear as if the words were crawling under my skin. Never open your eyes. That was it, just that. But it didn't sound like a warning, it sounded like a command. I stayed frozen, my fists clenched under the blanket, while the air grew heavier, and the smell grew stronger, and the presence leaned closer. I didn't dare move, and then the mattress dipped. The mattress dipped just enough for me to feel the weight shift toward my body. It wasn't like someone had sat down. It was more like something had crouched. Heavy, intentional. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears, louder than the faint hum that still filled the room. I tried to convince myself it was sleep paralysis. I'd heard of that before, waking up and being unable to move, hallucinating shadows in the dark. But sleep paralysis doesn't make the bed sag. Sleep paralysis doesn't breathe into your hair. I felt strands of it move across my forehead, as if something exhaled directly above me. The cold breath slid down my cheek, carrying that same smell of damp soil and rot. I wanted to scream, to push whatever it was away, but the voice echoed in my head again, louder this time. Never open your eyes. I clenched my eyelids tighter, afraid that even the smallest crack would be enough to invite it in. But that was when I realized the room wasn't silent anymore. There were other sounds. Fingernails, long, uneven, scraping lightly across the blanket near my legs. Then a faint dragging sound, like skin being pulled over wood, circling the bed. I felt it move from one side to the other, never walking, just dragging, as though its limbs bent the wrong way. And then it spoke again. Not the same words, different, whispered fragments, right against my ear. Words I didn't recognize, in a language that felt older than speech itself. Harsh syllables that made my teeth ache and my bones feel brittle. Every instinct screamed that if I understood the words, if I let myself understand them, something inside me would shatter. I bit down hard on my tongue to ground myself, the taste of iron filling my mouth. I kept repeating in my head, "This isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real." But then it laughed. It wasn't loud, it was worse than that. Low, close, the kind of laugh you feel in your spine, as if someone is pressing cold fingers into each vertebra. And that's when I realized it knew. It knew I was awake. The mattress sank further, closer to my ribs now. Its weight pressed against me without touching, like it was hovering inches from my chest. My breath hitched, and in the darkness behind my eyelids, I swear I saw flashes, pale, skeletal hands, a mouth stretched too wide, eyes burning like hollow coals. And then it whispered, clear, deliberate, as if carving each word into my skull. If you open them, I'll show you. Every muscle in my body tensed, sweat pooled at the back of my neck, dripping into my hair. My nails dug into my palms until I thought I'd break skin. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, all I could do was obey. Seconds passed, minutes, maybe. The scratching stopped, the weight lifted, the smell faded. For the first time that night, I thought maybe, just maybe, it had gone. I was wrong. Because just as my heartbeat began to slow, I heard the faintest sound. Not in the room, but inside my pillow, pressed against my ear. A whisper, soft and endless. I'm still here. I don't know how long I lay there, paralyzed, listening to that voice bleed through the pillow. It was so close, it felt like it was inside my skull, brushing against the inside of my ear. I couldn't block it out, no matter how tightly I pressed my hands against my head. The whisper didn't stop. It didn't even pause to breathe. At some point, I lost track of what it was saying. The words weren't words anymore, just vibrations, like a swarm of flies buzzing beneath my skin. My head throbbed, my chest tightened, and my whole body screamed at me to look, to just open my eyes and prove none of it was real. But the command replayed itself in my mind. Never open your eyes. And then the air shifted again. The weight returned, heavier this time, pressing down on my chest until my ribs ached. My lungs strained for air, and spots of light bloomed behind my eyelids. I wanted to gasp, to choke, to scream, but all I could do was writhe beneath the invisible force. And through it all, I felt the heat of its face hovering just inches from mine. I could hear its mouth opening. I could hear its jaw creak, wider and wider, until the sound itself became unbearable. That was when instinct betrayed me. In a single moment of weakness, my eyelids flickered open. I wish I hadn't. It was right there, a face stretched impossibly thin, skin clinging to bone like wet parchment, empty eyes burning with white light. Its mouth was a cavern, black and endless, as if it didn't end inside a throat but opened into something far, far larger. I saw teeth that weren't shaped like teeth at all, jagged, irregular, shifting as though they weren't bound to a jaw. And in that instant, time didn't move normally anymore. The room dissolved around me. I wasn't in my bed. I wasn't even in my apartment. I was standing, or maybe floating, in a place without walls, without a ceiling, just a vast expanse of shadow that pressed against me like water. And all around, there were more of them. Dozens, hundreds, faces like the one above me, mouths open in silence, eyes glowing like dying stars. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. All I could do was stare back as they leaned closer, in unison, their mouths stretching wider and wider until the sound returned. That hum, that deep, bone-shaking vibration I had heard on the very first night. Only now it was everywhere, inside me, splitting me apart. I don't remember how I got back. 1 second, I was drowning in the dark, and the next, I was lying in my bed, drenched in sweat, the taste of dirt thick on my tongue. Morning light crept through the window, and the room was empty. For days, I tried to convince myself it was a dream, a nightmare, some cruel trick of a tired mind. But then I saw it again, in the reflection of my bedroom mirror, just behind my shoulder, its eyes staring, waiting. I haven't slept properly since, and I know this much. If you ever wake up to the sound of breathing in your room, if you ever feel that weight pressing against your chest, don't open your eyes, because once you do, it never leaves.
Subscribe to Horror Story